Hey everybody, Stu Smith here, going live. Going to take some questions today, show some CSS videos. But before we get rolling, I am going to just start it off with a topic that was brought up yesterday about working out when you don't feel like it. In fact, I'm going to post this question right here in the topics. Um, and this is just what we're going to chat about here for a few minutes. In fact, I had one of those days today where I didn't feel like working out and I didn't. And here's the difference. A couple times, it happens a couple times a week usually. I wake up in the morning, I'm really comfortable, don't feel like getting up, but I get up anyway. Um, that is different than what I felt today. And usually on those days, I will go work out, no problem. After a warm up, I'm back into it 100%. Not a big deal. It's just a hard time getting going. I didn't feel like working out, so I worked out anyway. There's a little saying I like to use is um, that sometimes I work out because I don't feel like I want to work out. I'm just kind of pissed at myself. But today, after a really hot and sweaty morning and probably about 5 miles of running and a lot of reps of calisthenics yesterday, and then I moved my son into college, which it was a horrible setup because it was about a 150-yard walk 8 times carrying stuff from 2 cars into his new room. Um, that sucked. And third floor. So we got to climb stairs again. And it was hot. It was like 1 o'clock in the afternoon. Pavement was hot, hardly any shade, just sucked. So I was sweating profusely again. But before that, I went swimming. So I had by the time it was 1 or 2 o'clock, I had already done probably 2.5 hours worth of activity, and then took about 3 hours to move in. And so by the time I got back home last night, I fell asleep about 8:30. I was done. Um, Tried to hydrate, tried to electrolyte, caught a cramp in the middle of the night. I knew it wasn't going to be a good morning this morning, um, because I think wasn't hydrated enough, didn't have enough electrolytes. I tried. I even took a can of chicken noodle soup before I went to bed just to see if that would help me. And it did. I wasn't necessarily cramping this morning, but I just didn't want to sweat today. And I just coached. So I went in, old man, coached, walked into the workouts, and they were running hills and swimming, and I was just coaching. So that was a different feeling today. I needed a recovery day, an unplanned recovery day. And those are different than just not feeling motivated to work out. So you have to kind of earn those, in other words, whether it's through hard activity work. Usually it's for me, it's summertime is the worst because I just can't keep up with the hydration and electrolytes that are getting pumped out. I think by the time I was done yesterday, I had 3 shirts that could wring out. So I lost a lot of water. I wish I'd have weighed myself before and after all of that because I know I had to lose throughout the day, 5, 10 pounds of water easy. Um, constantly replenishing it, but I wasn't peeing much. I was just sweating it out. Okay, so let's see if we got some questions here. But that was a good question, and I thought I didn't really answer the other side of that question, um, about when is it okay to pull back and recover. For me, it was purely I didn't want to sweat again. I may go do some mobility work today just to kind of loosen up, but I just cannot sweat. I'm just going to spend the whole day hydrating, electrolytes, get those in me, and then we'll do something pumped up tomorrow. But yeah, send your questions. If I don't see any questions, what I will do is just go right into the CSS. I got a couple of CSS uh, videos to show you guys. In fact, let's just go ahead and get this first one over with because it is. All right, this one's right off YouTube. So let me do this. All right, so let's see what this looks like. So it kicks off the wall. Okay, first of all, I can tell you this is going to be a good kick off the wall just by his streamlined body position. You see that? One hand's on top of the other. These biceps are on his ears. There's no space in between his bicep and his head. Sometimes I'll see this, for a kickoff. You want to look like a torpedo when you're kicking off that wall. He's produced a lot of power, so he'll probably get a pretty good glide out of this. So kick off the wall. Oh, that's where he messes up right there. See this? That was like a jumping jack pull down, and it's not very powerful. You got to think about it more like a breaststroke pull out where you're actually pulling water down this way, getting in deep, like you're reaching over a barrel, grabbing all that water and pushing it behind you. Because if you're doing it this way, I mean, take a look at which way my force vectors are going when I go out this way. They're going this way. That doesn't make me go forward. It almost stops me in the water. And then here I'm going forward a little bit, but it's not very powerful because it's just shoulders. It's like a lateral raise, or a lateral, push down. Not very powerful with just using your shoulders. You want to be able to use your lats, your biceps, your triceps, pulling and pushing that water behind you. That's a bad kick off the wall because of this secondary pull out. It was a good kickoff. Had he just gone right into the stroke, probably would have been better. But because he is doing this jumping jack, and if you also notice, he is up on the surface, so all that surface tension right there is slowing him down to a point where I bet you he goes back down to 0 in his speed from where he was kicking off the wall, which was pretty fast, right? So watch this. As he makes this transition, yeah, he almost stops. All right, so there's a lot going wrong here. All right, so he's got a kick and he has no glide. So he just kicked and he has already pulled that top arm. He needs to be holding that kick. So your top arm, bottom arm, and then you kick and you hold it. You don't kick and immediately pull and then glide in this bottom arm position. I've seen that a lot. In fact, I think I have another video of it, the guy doing it too, but he's actually pretty good at it. This guy is not good at it. And you'll see the difference. It's all about streamline. It's a decent streamline here, but what this is showing is that his kick and arm pull really need work because he's not getting a lot of speed out of it. And then you notice he didn't even breathe on that one. So you got to breathe. You got to inhale with the bottom arm. Can't skip breathe this one. So top arm, bottom arm, kick and glide, right? There's no glide. So you can't start pulling and skip a glide in the stroke. You're just going to be constantly working so hard in this, and a 500-yard swim will be exhausting for you. Okay, let's do it. Top arm, bottom arm, breathe, kick and glide. No glide. I'm going to quit showing you this because it's just not good. Notice the arm recovery too. Way out here, right? These should be a lot closer to the body. This big old scissor kick, not producing really any amount of glide whatsoever. So we got to fix the kick, got to fix the streamline recovery, got to fix the breaststroke pull out off the wall, and you got to fix the timing of the stroke because you have no glide. So there's just a lot to fix in that, right? So sorry about that, but that one needs work. I'll pull up another one here and take some questions. Get this one just queued up, ready to go. Let's see here. So next question. Off topic. Can I use your fall, winter, spring, summer books for my daily training like forever? Absolutely. Absolutely. And I will tell you this, my fall, winter, spring, summer training program is what we did 3 years ago. The spring training program, Increased Strength, is a block periodization version of that we did 2 years ago and this past year. The years before that, Tactical Strength was our winter lift program. Tactical Fitness was a transition into that same year. And then we had a Navy SEAL weight training workout, which was kind of the answer to the Complete Guide to Navy SEAL Fitness, my first program that I wrote. That's all calisthenics and cardio, so you can treat that like a summer program. And then the Navy SEAL weight training program is like a fall winter program. So that is how I have created all these different programs. And the only difference is the system is the same. The seasonal tactical fitness periodization model is the same. The only difference is mainly in its choreography of the exercises. You know, to make different circuits and make different supersets and make different programs. Like the 50-50 workout did not exist 6 years ago, right? So I've been starting to put that into my more updated programs, just because it works so well. So these are just evolutions of that journey. They worked back then and made people get to and through selection. They still work now. So if you want a variety throughout the years, that's how you kind of move through this seasonal tactical fitness periodization model, and you can build yourself a pretty good variety. In fact, this next series that I'm writing is each season has its own program. So there's going to be a spring, summer, fall, winter 4-part series called Seasonal Tactical Fitness Periodization Spring. And I'm working on that right now. Probably be done before the new year. And I'd like to get them all out there quickly, but I may wind up doing the fall and winter first, just to have something new for this fall and winter, and then hit the spring and summer on the back end. But I should have all 4 of them done before the new year starts. Good question, though. Let's see. I tend to float more than I want, and my kicks to glide don't feel that powerful. Got to practice. Keep practicing. Um, Floating is an issue sometimes, especially if you're plowing the surface. If you can try to get in a little deeper, that's fine. If you have a great amount of body fat, that could be a problem. You just need to lean out a little bit. That might make it a little bit easier. Um, but yeah, just gotta keep practicing. And a lot of times people will either stay on their side and that shoulder is just plowing the surface the whole time. So you may want to roll over just a little bit, like a 45-degree angle to get that shoulder under the water. That may be helpful for the glide position. Some people roll over on the belly. I personally like to do that. Don't have to do that, but you can compromise and do somewhere in the middle, right? Um, Especially if you notice your top shoulder is just plowing the surface the whole time. All right. Renoir, how are you, sir? Any tips on how to lower cholesterol? Reading is 7.7. Doctor wants me on drugs. I don't. Yeah, if you can avoid the drugs, go for it. Um, a lot of times it's just genetic. Some people have genetic predispositions to cholesterol. Um, I don't have an answer to that, to be honest. My suggestion would be to go online, find some credible sources, doctors primarily, maybe some nutritionists, registered dietitians that can help you do it with food versus drugs. And I know you exercise, so that can't be the problem. And it's just got to be something that's coming in, but it could also be a genetic issue. So usually that Mediterranean diet works pretty well over there, but I'm not a registered dietitian nor nutritionist. I have written something about it in the past, um, but I just researched some studies and doctors' uh, recommendations. If I can find it. For all. Let's see here. I did write this article about understanding numbers behind cholesterol scores. Um, Quoted several doctors in this one. Triglycerides, yeah, yeah, something. What more to eat, what not to eat in here. Yeah, there's a lot of stuff in here. Check this out. But once again, if you really want to fine tune it for you personally, I would suggest maybe getting a nutritionist or a registered dietitian to help with that. But if you can avoid drugs, I would, but some people cannot. Some people, it is just purely genetic. They're predisposed to body makes more cholesterol for some reason. Might be food, might be genetic. I don't know. Okay. How important is training at a lap pool? I've been doing my swimming in my smaller apartment pool. Well, if it's too small, you may be able to um you may be able to kick all the way across the pool without even doing a stroke and be on the other side. So, as long as you can do some strokes in it, it's useful. I know when they closed all the pools here because of COVID, I had a neighbor let me use their backyard pool. And what I did is I got one of the swim bungees and just hooked up my swim bungee to the edge of the pool and um, just was able to do that. You just stay in one spot. That bungee keeps you just 2, 3 feet away from the pool's edge the whole time. You don't go forward, you don't go backwards, you just stay in one spot and swim. It's really cool. So check out the swim bungee if you're tired of turning around every 5 seconds. So Joe asks a silly question. Navy SEAL books, my original one's still relevant. Absolutely. People are still using those and crushing it. Now, I will tell you this, the Complete Guide to Navy SEAL Fitness is all calisthenics and cardio. If you're coming into this journey weak, like you're not a strong person, like you've never done any weightlifting, you may be needing to put in a cycle of weightlifting, put on some mass so you go into SEAL training with some strength to handle the load bearing activities such as logs and boats and rucking and fireman carries and things like that. So, once again, it's a cycle. Consider Complete Guide to Navy Fitness a summer calisthenics and cardio cycle, and consider the Navy SEAL weight training program a winter lift cycle. They both work still. I mean, the human body hasn't changed. Buds hasn't changed. It's still hard. So yes, they still work. I don't sell them on my website anymore. However, you can get them on Amazon. Um, should I work on any other strokes besides CSS and freestyle? Sometimes I do breaststroke instead of free to give my shoulders a break. If there's any benefit to doing other strokes. No, I do the same. I will do breaststroke to give my shoulders a break. I will do turtle backing just to work legs more when swimming with fins. You just lay on your back and flutter kick. Um, Try that for a mile. That'll work the legs really well. But yeah, sometimes I like to go really hard for like 75 or 100 and then do a 25 or a 50 turtleback. So my rest is actually my face is out of the water the whole time. I'm catching my breath, but I am continuously moving, at a slower pace, but that is my kind of active rest when I swim with fins. So consider that as an option as well. But yeah, nothing wrong to do it, especially if you need to give your shoulders a break. Sometimes a freestyle CSS combo right after an upper body day is really hard. I mean, your arms just don't even feel like moving. So if you can warm it up with some other strokes and, you know, give your shoulders a break, I think that's always wise. So good workout progressions for treading water without hands. Check out this article because I use a lot of mobility work when it comes to treading, especially if you are trying to um, learn the egg beater. A lot of people can't do the egg beater because their hips and knees and ankles are too immobile and they don't know how to do a proper breaststroke kick because all the egg beater is a alternating breaststroke kick. So as far as the progression, we only progress with time. So we will start off a swim workout with like a 2-minute tread, and then we start the swim workout, and then we'll finish the swim workout with a 2-minute tread. And then eventually that will build up to a 5-minute tread, no hands, and then 5-minute tread at the end. Eventually it will build up to a 10-minute tread warm up or a 10-minute tread cool down. Another way to do it too is in between your hundreds. Like if you're doing a swim workout, and let's say you're doing 100 yards set or 200 yard set, whatever that is, do your rest no hand tread for 1 minute every set. That's a really good way to practice treading and get your conditioning to a point where it's really more of an active rest than it is um, a hard tread workout. So it's more, think of it as tread conditioning because you need to get in treading shape as much as swimming shape because treading is nothing more than vertical swimming. And I want people to understand that because treading is hard, especially if you're not buoyant. If you're buoyant, you can just sit there and float. It's a different story when you're lean and you start sinking when you quit moving. It's a harder beast. Going to talk to a recruiter today about joining the 17th Regiment. Any questions or advice I should ask? Good question. First of all, I wouldn't talk to any recruiter unless you are physically ready to join the military. That means any fitness test that you know that is in your future, you can already crush because you're going to be behind the 8 ball if you start your timeline too soon without being physically prepared for that journey. Whether you're going Rangers, SEALs, recon, doesn't matter. I want you to be physically prepared before you even talk to a recruiter. All right. That's my number one recommendation for anybody. I can't tell you how many people I see go to the recruiter, sign up, delayed entry program, don't even know what the PST is, don't even know how to swim 500 yards CSS. So they have to learn the CSS. They have to get in shape to swim a 500. Then they got to do pull up, push up, sit ups, mile and a half. And guess what? They don't get a SEAL billet because they just screwed themselves because they went and signed too early. So do yourself a favor and be physically ready. As far as questions, I think the Army needs people. There may be a bonus for signing up for Army Rangers. I think one of our guys, I don't know if it was later last year, so it wasn't even a year ago. Um, I think he got like a $20,000 bonus to join the Rangers. Now, he didn't get it until he finished Ranger school and got through RASP and was actually at the regiment. So there's some stipulations in there whether or not you get it or not. Um, you don't just get it for signing. So there's some of those things. I would say ask them how the um, GI Bill works. You know, these are just things that you can know a little bit of this information going in, um, but it's nice to see if your recruiter also knows these things. Ask them about the ASFAB. Is there a particular ASFAB score that you need um, to get into the Ranger Regiment? Once again, all this information can be found, and you can do this research yourself and then confirm it with your recruiter. Sometimes things change. Like I said, sometimes there's bonus options, sometimes there's not. So I would also ask, where is your training going to be? Where would you be living after you graduate Ranger school? Right? Do you know? Do you know where that is already? Right? If you don't, you should. Right? You should know what town you're going to live in, what state you're going to live in. Those are things that a lot of people, believe it or not, don't even know. Don't even know. One of the reasons why I chose the Navy is I looked where all the Navy bases were compared to where all the Air Force and Army bases were. I grew up in Florida. I like the ocean. Guess what? Every Navy base is pretty much a beach town. There's a few exceptions, but that was my reasoning um, for making that decision. Plus, Top Gun came out and the Navy pilot thing was pretty cool. All right, let's see. Heard some rumors about really high attrition rates at Buds. There's not rumors, it's true. Well, it's two things. First of all, they don't need SEALs as badly as they did 10 years ago. So they're not allowing as many people to graduate. However, because of the low attrition rate of previous classes, I'm talking about the last 3 or 4 classes, maybe even 5, the year groups have been decimated, which means every year that somebody joins, that's your year group. And every year group needs a certain number of SEALs. And when you are undermanned in that year group, you can do one of two things. You can, allow more people to finish buds, not break them like they had been doing, or they can pull from the fleet from that year group and allow them to go to buds. So you may see in the next couple of years people who joined in 2021, maybe even 22, be able to go to buds from the fleet at a greater rate than they have previously because of the undermanning of those year groups. So, yeah, I think it was unsustainably toxic. Some of the previous classes were just historically high attrition rate compared to the historical average. Like normally, it is common to see 80% attrition rate, and like a big class may be a 75% attrition rate. Right. But when you're hitting 90, 95% attrition rate, the classes are tiny. I'm talking single digits getting through Hell Week every class. And you would still see that even 10, 15 years ago, but it was typically in winter hell weeks where it was just a bigger attrition rate because it was just so cold. So they're not far from the numbers. I mean, we're looking at, 50 to 100, probably. So when you have a class that starts with 200 and then you finish hell week with only 10, that's unsustainable for the community, and that is too big of an attrition rate. So people are saying buds got easy, and I say buds was unsustainably difficult and not historical averages. So anybody can put somebody through buds to a point and just drive them to where they quit or break them, or if they don't quit, they'll break them. And that was a lot of the attrition, was just a lot of people getting rolled from being injured. So they have fixed that. And if you look at some of the latest numbers, it's back to the normal average. So it happens, it happens. Have any of your guys have problems with the ASVAB? Every now and then, some people have, but I always recommend. I mean, I'm not an ASVAB coach. All I would recommend is get an ASVAB book or go online and do some ASVAB practice tests. So you at least understand the type of questions you're about to get asked. It's no different than studying for an SAT or an ACT. You're not going to get smarter studying for these tests, but you're going to learn how to take these tests. Very similar to the PST. If you've never taken a PST and you go into a recruiter's office, you're stupid, right? You've never taken a practice ASVAB, you're stupid. You should practice these tests to learn how to take the tests more efficiently and better. So that's my advice for test taking. All right, let's do another CSS real quick. Let me share this window. Guys should be able to see this. I'm not even sure if this is a good one or a bad one. Let's see. I can already tell you it's probably not that good. I mean, just looking at the streamline off the wall there, you can see some daylight in between his biceps and his ears. He does have one hand on top of the other, which is pretty good. But this arm pull again is like doing jumping jacks. Like, this is not very powerful here. And he doesn't get very far, though he is underwater, so that's helpful. If he's plowing the surface, it's even worse. Oh, look at that. So he does 2. Don't do 2. This isn't an underwater swim. This is a CSS. So keep it at 1. Let's see what goes on here. So top arm, bottom arm, kick and glide. So he's got a breaststroke kick. Looks like he's got the timing down pretty well. Let's see how it looks coming back. Top arm, bottom arm, kick and glide. Okay, look at that bottom arm there. Really big sweeping bottom arm. Does not need to be that big to come all the way down to his thighs. Just make it more of a breaststroke version, like a breaststroke skull, instead of coming down all the way to the bottom. Just make it come down to about your ribs and then bring it right back up. That's going to shorten this process out a little more and speed him into the next glide. Now, he does have a pretty loose recovery. See how his arms are really way out whenever he is recovering. His arm's doing a lot of strokes here. That's a 30-second. And now, okay, so oops, let me back him up a little bit. All right, so he's plowing the surface on this one. So he's just not consistent with his kickoffs. In that shallow end, he was 6 inches underwater, which is fine. But on the deep end, he's plowing the surface with his head, not getting very far, and his streamline is not as tight as it was. He goes right into kicking. So he's got to work on his breaststroke pullout. Top arm, bottom arm, kick and glide. He's got a good breaststroke. However, see how his arms really kind of slow him down? It's like goes 1 step forward, 1 step back as he pushes his arms forward. Slows him down a little bit. So he's got a breaststroke with a little flutter kick in there. It's okay. If you like doing the breaststroke, it's great. If you have a history of breaststroking, you probably have a pretty good breaststroke. You can do the breaststroke with this stroke. But if you're not a breaststroker, you probably really haven't developed these kicking muscles. Though this, like I said, it doesn't look bad. He's just not streamlined enough to make it effective. So I think if he fixes his streamline, he could still go with this breaststroke kick. I personally prefer the scissor kick, but I think that is more of a preference thing. Definitely has to work on this breaststroke pullout. So the reason why I'd say he's not a breaststroker, because he doesn't know a good breaststroke pullout also. That's a pretty big deal in competitive breaststroke swimming. He's just probably used to playing Marco Polo using a breaststroke kick when he's swimming underwater. But he's definitely a running athlete versus a swimming athlete, so he might be faster with a scissor kick versus a breaststroke kick. All right, so let's see what's going on. No more questions here. Let me see. Did I miss any questions? Let me see. New comment. Here you go. Got here after you did my CSS critique. I went back to watch it. I really appreciate the feedback. I know it needs a lot of work. Not a problem. I should have also emailed you my feedback as well, because I don't just do this on YouTube. I actually answer your email or DMs with a critique response too. So if I didn't put anything in there that I mentioned on YouTube, just put the two together and you probably got a double critique there. All right, let's tell you what, let's do another one. Unfortunately, I don't have many good ones for you today. I think I might have one good one. Got a couple bad ones. This one is, I want you to see this, because this is what happens when you over rotate and you do that bottom arm pull, and it's a really big one. If you notice, what he's doing every stroke is like that bottom arm pull turns his whole head backwards, and he's bent over like he's doing a crunch in the water. Now watch this. So top arm, bottom arm, like I'm probably 5 or 6 feet behind him, and he's looking back at me with this. So he's over rotating right now. And his kick is pretty weak too. So I'm not sure why his kick wants to pause in the middle of its movement, but it's got to be more streamlined than this. When you put your leg out there like this right there and just hold it, that's like, hey, let's swim with the brakes on for a while and just stop yourself from any forward momentum. But you can see he's like constantly in a position of stopping and moving, stopping and moving. And the main reason that he's doing this is he's got a really big sweeping bottom arm that is causing him to over rotate. And believe it or not, this is like after me telling him that he's over rotating, and it looks a little better this time than it did last time. So he's trying not to over rotate. You should have seen it before. He was actually getting in a ball almost every time. And you really want to stay as straight as you can, like a torpedo, in this stroke. In fact, I'll show you a guy who is pretty good with doing that. He's doing it a little wrong, but he's got a really good streamlined body position, and that helps manage some misfirings of the stroke. For instance, if you're pulling and kicking at the same time, or you have a less than strong efficient kick or pull, if you have a really good streamline, it doesn't really matter. I mean, it matters a little bit, but you can get away with a lot of it. Okay, so let's see what's going on. I've been doing the 50-50 with the first 50 breathing every 8 to 10. That's good. That's hard. That makes that a conditioning workout. And rest pace swimming, the CSS, it's helped me with my underwaters a lot too. It should help. You might even feel it helping you with running as well. Any advice on traveling in the water, hands, feet tied with goggles in mouth? Um, yeah, you don't have to do that. Um, you're not going to have your goggles in your mouth traveling. I mean, at the very last part of the drown proofing test, you have to pick up your mask with your teeth, take it up to the surface, and swim over to the side of the pool, which might be 5 feet, 10 feet max. Don't sweat it. Never had to do that. So unless it's this, you're talking about a different test than I'm aware of at Buds. I saw a CS video where the swimmer stays on side the entire 500. Is this just in the time 500? Should we be alternating sides in practice? Stays on one side. It's up to you. It is up to you, or I should say, it is up to the instructor, because the instructor may say you have to be facing him the entire time that you are doing the CSS. That means every length that you take, you got to change sides. That is sometimes an arbitrary rule that they will throw at you. But yeah, unless they tell you to switch sides, I would stay on your strong side as much as you prefer. I mean, it's only 500 yards. It's not that big a deal. Where it matters is when you do the 2-mile ocean swim with fins every week at SEAL training. Is you can't stay in there for an hour to 80 minutes on one side. You got to switch sides, because that's a lot. You know, when you're talking about an 8-minute swim, doesn't really matter unless it's just a technique rule issue that they want to see how you handle, rule changes when they test you. What boots are issued at Buds? Nike Combat Gen 2. Do you have to wear the boots they issue you? Yes. Or you can wear your own, but they have to be Nike Combat Gen 2. I'm worried they won't make my boot width, which is 4E, extra wide. They may not, but I would buy the Nike Combat Gen 2, whatever quadruple E that you need, because you got to wear what everybody else wears. I mean, they may make some exception if your feet are jacked up and they don't fit. But I would bring your own just as backup, but they better look like Nike Combat Gen 2s, at least be black. Looks a little better. Any advice on traveling in the water, hands, feet tied with God? Didn't you just ask this question? I don't have any advice for that, because it's not an event. I've never done it. Like, you have to swim to the edge of the pool, just kick. You can still breathe. That's all you can do is kick. All right, let me change the screen here, because I don't understand that question. All right, so let's move on here. So let's see what this looks like. I think this one had a pretty good streamline, but there was something off in it. Yeah, good streamline, decent double arm pull, not bad. Transition, top arm, bottom arm, kick. Oh, no glide. However, notice he's gliding in this position. This is called the lead arm, trail arm glide position, which is very common in the elementary side stroke. Also in the Air Force uses lead arm, trail arm when they swim with fins. But this glide position is okay. I find 2 arms over the head like this to be a little more efficient. But you can't argue with results either because this guy's swimming like an 8-minute swim. So watch it. So top arm, bottom arm kick, and he holds the glide there versus holds it there. All right, let me back that up real quick. So he holds the glide, doesn't hold the glide here. He holds it here for 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi, pull. Right, so he's a little bit off, but he's still getting a good glide out of every stroke. Needs to work on that turnaround a little bit. But if you look at the math here on his time, it's going to be 25-second 25. He'll probably make a 50-second 50 pretty easily. That's a decent streamline. I don't teach it this way. However, I'm not going to argue with results of a 48-second 50. And it's a legal swim. It's an underwater recovery stroke. It is basically the side stroke. When we talk about the combat swimmer stroke and the side stroke is what you just saw. The combat swimmer stroke is more of a modified side stroke where you actually pull that top arm, bottom arm, and you kick and recover both, and then you hold it for a second glide versus gliding here. So there's a little education in what side stroke and CSS, the difference between the two are. In fact, the elementary side stroke is taught by most lifeguarding programs or like YMCA clubs. They'll teach the side stroke, the breaststroke, freestyle, or crawl stroke. Those are the big three. I mean, they may teach butterfly, but I doubt it. Those are the big three that they would teach. But that side stroke is what we all used to do before somebody got the idea to kick and recover and hold that glide. And then it was more, at first, it was called a modified side stroke. Then about mid 90s, everybody started calling it the combat side stroke. So, combat swimmer stroke is what it kind of eventually evolved into. So that's the journey of swimming. Anybody have any other questions? Let's see. I'm not seeing any other questions here. But I do have a couple videos of traveling. If you go to my TikTok page, you'll see a travel TikTok Stu Smith 50. Also on my Instagram, Stu Smith 50. There's a couple of swim videos on there as well. You got to scroll through a lot, but the TikTok is nothing but CSS critiques. And if there's a little title on each one of those, and you may see drown proofing in there, click that, and you'll see hands tied behind your back, simulating, hands, feet tied together, simulating, and then we're traveling for 100 yards in that video. So, do they allow coffee in the morning in selection? Absolutely. You go to breakfast just like every other human, and there's coffee served in selection. Now, I don't recommend drinking a lot of coffee prior to it, especially if you're going to be sweating profusely that day. Or if you're going to be doing something like running a timed run or timed swim where you're getting your heart rate elevated pretty high. Sometimes going into those with already elevated heart rates is not helpful. So I tend to lay off caffeine before hard cardio events. But if I'm not doing a hard cardio event, sure, I'll have some coffee or tea. I don't like coffee that much, so I drink unsweet tea. For caffeine. Oh, let's see. Are there non-selects at the end of buds? No. You will either be kicked out or failed out or quit at the end of buds. Buds is a 6-month course. It's not a selection per se, like a 3-week selection. The selection part of buds is really the first 4 weeks. If you want to compare it to other selection programs like RASP or SFAS or SFRE, whatever they call it, um, as those are, you can pass but not get selected. They're a little more subjective in that way. Um, buds is a little different where all the attrition happens in the first 4 weeks. After that, you're actually going through a course where you're learning tactical applications like scuba diving and shooting and land nav and patrolling and demo, all of those things. So it's kind of like a selection plus training. It's a 6-month block. But pretty much you have to be boarded out and do something stupid. I know Buds doesn't allow supplements. Does Spec War allow powder products? You mean protein products or just powder? Put it this way. On the back of any supplement, like here's my fish oil, it will say supplement facts on it. Now, if I were to go grab my protein powder that's up in the kitchen, it's pure protein powder, right? It actually says nutrition facts on the back of it. That's a different animal. You can't have supplements. You can have nutrition facts, on the back of products, but not supplements. That's the rule. Now, yes, they are powder products, but I don't know I don't know the deal with Air Force Special Warfare, what they allow. I would assume they probably don't allow supplements either, but I could be wrong. Yeah, any reading recommendations not authored by me. um, yeah, I would go. One of my favorite books I've read lately is the By Water Beneath the Walls, um, by Ben Milligan. Highly recommend it. I also had him on a podcast where we just talked about his journey as he's also a SEAL, um, but he wrote a history book about the SEALs versus a book about you know missions of that he did. It was all about the history of SEALs all the way back to post World War One. And in fact, it was so thorough, it's pretty thick, that the references on the back is about 25% of the book. His basically bibliography. It's huge, and I'd highly recommend that, especially if you're looking for SEAL type stuff. But I would say other books, anything written by Dick Couch is a really good one as well. He's probably has a dozen out there. Most of them, I think he might have one fictional book, but everything else is nonfiction about a variety of SOCOM. Everybody Rangers, they got SF. I think the book Chosen, that was a really good one. They did another one on Rangers. Did a couple finishing school on SEALs, which is basically like what SQT is all about. Yeah, check out Dick Couch. He's got a laundry list of great books to read, and anything that he writes is a good learning experience about that community. Can I bring orthotics? And do I need a waiver? I don't think so. I don't think you need a waiver. I wore inserts that were special at Buds in my boots. No one asked about them. Also wore extra cushion insoles in my boots that helped a lot. And they were made by Sorbothane. So check out the ones made by Sorbothane. They just, I think they're just made out of a rubbery thing, so it didn't matter if they got wet. They just handled the water a lot better. So check out Sorbothane brand insoles. I personally like the orange ones. Not sure if there's a difference between the orange and blue anymore, but back in the day, those were the ones that fit me best and were thick enough to provide a little bit more cushion in the old jungle boots that we were issued, like Vietnam era jungle boots. It sucked. These were before the Bates. Bates were like awesome, and then the newer ones, the Nikes, are even better than the Bates. So you've gotten some really good running boots now at Buds versus combat boots. Um, do I work out before I go live? Yes, I do. 6 a.m. we start working out, and usually by 8 we're done, and then I go live at 9 a.m. East Coast time. I watched your video on doing 3-to-1 split during a cycle. I did this with summer program weeks 13 to 15, and then did week 16 fall winter. Yeah, you can do it that way. Absolutely. If you don't feel like, if you put it this way, if you have the, oh man, if you have the spring, summer, and the fall, winter book, you could go, and if you're in the summer, you could do 3 weeks of this, 1 week of the winter, and then you could flip it. In the winter, you could do 3 weeks of the winter, 1 week of the summer. That's completely fine, because it's basically, you're basically deloading the focus. So whatever you're focused on, you're taking a week, deloading, focusing on something else that is needed for a week, and then you come back into that next week, and you'll find yourself a little recovered from the next lift cycle that you're on, or the next run and calisthenics cycle you're on. It's just a fun program. I enjoy the block periodization model a lot. And what I'll probably do with this this next cycle, as I'm writing it right now, I will probably make it like a voluntary block periodization. So I'll have, like in the summer cycle, I'll have 1 week that I said, this is our lift week, deload week, and you can put this in to this 12-week summer anywhere you want. You can just put it right here in week 4. You can put it right here in week 8, right here in week 12. That way you kind of take a 12-week program and might even add a few weeks to it if you wanted to. And, because you're replacing a calisthenics cardio week with a lift cycle week, and it turns a 12-week program into a 16-week program, basically. Yeah, good question. The Warrior Elite is one of my, great book by Dick Couch. Highly recommend that one too. Let's see. All right. So, guys, I've been at this for an hour. I try to limit them to an hour so I don't waste a lot of your time. So, if you guys have any questions and I missed them, send them to me. You can send them to me at stu@stewsmith.com, or you can DM me over on Instagram. Happy to answer them there as well. But yeah, click like and subscribe if you want to get these things. We do these things every Monday and Tuesday live. And usually I throw in a third one. I'm trying to get another podcast out with Jeff and another couple of guests, just trying to line up some crazy schedules as we turn summer into fall. But we're figuring it out. So, all right, guys, I appreciate it. Thanks for sticking around. Don't forget, StuSmithFitness.com, save 20% using the Compete20 code. Get ready for the fall with the fall lift cycle. We'll catch you later. Have a good one.